Imagine the power goes out tonight and stays out for 2 weeks. No lights, no refrigerator, no freezer, the stores closed, or their shelves stripped bare within a day. For most families in this country, that would be a genuine crisis. Hungry and frightened inside of 72 hours. But in my home, those 2 weeks would pass almost unnoticed at the supper table. We would eat well every single day, exactly as we always do, because the food we depend on doesn't need electricity, doesn't come from a store, and is already sitting on our shelves, put there by our own hands. The secret is a proper, old-fashioned pantry, and today I'm going to show you not just what's in it, but the whole way of thinking behind it, so you can build one of your own and never again be at the mercy of the grid or the store. So let me get right into it. Here is the heart of the whole matter, the one idea everything else grows from. The modern way of keeping food is built entirely on electricity that never stops. The refrigerator, the freezer, every bit of it depends on power flowing without a break. And the day that power fails, all that food is suddenly in danger, and then it's gone. We've built our whole way of eating on something fragile, something that can be snuffed out by a single storm. But the old way, my way, doesn't lean on power at all. Our food is kept by methods that need no electricity whatsoever. Food that sits patient and good on a shelf or down in a cellar, ready any hour of any day. That's the whole secret in a single sentence. A pantry full of food that keeps itself. Now let me show you how it's filled. The first great pillar is home canning, the beating heart of an old-fashioned pantry. This is the near-forgotten art that every family once practiced through the summer and the fall, taking the fresh abundance of the harvest and sealing it up in glass jars so that it keeps, safe and good, for a year or more, sitting right on a shelf at room temperature, needing nothing at all. A jar of green beans, of tomatoes, of peaches, of a whole hearty soup, even of meat, put up in the warm months and pulled down to feed your family in the dead of winter, with no cold ever touching it. When we bring in the garden, we don't eat what we can and let the rest go to waste. We put it up, jar after jar, shelf after shelf, until the whole year's harvest is preserved and waiting. And come winter, come a power outage, come hard times, we simply walk to the pantry, and there it all is. Now I have to stop right here and be dead serious with you, because canning is a wonder, but it must be done right. And done wrong, it can truly harm someone. There are two kinds of canning, and you must know the difference. The high-acid foods, your fruits and jams and pickles, and properly acidified tomatoes, can be safely put up with the simpler boiling water method. But the low-acid foods, your vegetables like beans and corn, and above all any meat, those must be canned in a pressure canner, which reaches the higher heat needed to make them truly safe, because improperly canned low-acid food can grow a poison you cannot see, smell, or taste, and it can be deadly. This is not a place for guessing or shortcuts. If you're going to can, and I hope with all my heart you will, learn it properly from trusted, tested instructions. Use a pressure canner for the low-acid foods and meats every single time, and follow the method to the letter. Done right, canning has fed families safely for generations. Done carelessly, it's dangerous. Respect it completely. The second pillar is the dry staples, and these are the simplest of all. There are foods that, kept dry and sealed away from bugs and mice, last not months but years, some of them many years, with no fuss whatsoever. Beans of every kind, rice, wheat and other grains, and the flour milled from them, dried corn, oats, salt, which lasts forever, sugar, and honey, which, as I've told you before, never spoils at all. These are the foundation of a deep larder because they keep so long and feed so many. A few sacks of beans and rice and grain, stored right, are a mountain of meals waiting to be cooked, sitting patient for years and asking nothing. The old families kept bins and barrels of these, and a household with a full grain bin and a shelf of beans never once feared going hungry. The third pillar is the root cellar. that marvel that keeps food fresh for months on nothing but the cool, steady temperature of the earth itself. Down in that cool, dark, potatoes keep all winter. Carrots and beets and turnips and parsnips, packed in sand, stay firm and sweet. Cabbages, apples, onions, winter squash, all of it holds for months with no machine, no power, nothing but the ground doing what the ground has always done. A root cellar is a refrigerator that runs on nothing, forever. And for the fresh vegetables and fruits that store well, there's no finer way to keep them without power. And there are the older arts besides, each one needing no electricity. Drying, the oldest of all, taking the water out of fruits and vegetables and herbs and even meat so they simply cannot spoil, light and lasting and easy to store. The fermented foods, the sauerkraut and the pickles, which keep for months and do the body good besides. The cured meats, the hams and bacon put up with salt and smoke the old way, which fed families through winter for centuries before any freezer existed. Every one of these shares that same beautiful quality. They keep themselves with no power at all. But here's the part that most folks miss entirely. The part that turns a heap of stored food into a real, living, working pantry that will carry you through anything. It is the system of rotation, and it rests on one simple rule. You eat what you store, and you store what you eat. Let me explain what I mean, because it changes everything. A real pantry is not a thing you fill up once and shove in the basement to forget about against some far-off emergency. That's exactly how folks end up with shelves of expired, forgotten food they never touch. No, a true pantry is a living thing you eat from every single day and refill as you go. You cook from your stored food constantly, always using the oldest jars and the oldest sacks first, and you replace what you use with fresh. The food is always moving, always being used and renewed, so nothing ever sits long enough to spoil, and the pantry stays always full. First in, first out. That's the old rule. The jar you canned first is the jar you open first. And do you see the beauty of that? It means you are always prepared without ever once having to think about being prepared, because preparedness is simply built into how you eat. When the power goes out, nothing changes for you at all, because you were already eating from those very shelves yesterday, and you'll be eating from them tomorrow. There's no panic, no scramble, no difference between an ordinary week and a hard one. That's the real secret at the bottom of it all. Not merely storing food, but living from your stores, so that being ready isn't some event you brace for, it's just your everyday life. That is the thing most folks get wrong when they try to prepare. Buying special emergency food and forgetting it in a corner to age while they eat store-bought day to day, so that when hard times finally come, half of it's expired and they don't even know how to cook the rest. The old way is wiser by far. Your everyday food simply is your emergency food, because your everyday food is the deep pantry, eaten and refilled in one gentle, endless cycle. Now let me be the honest neighbor and give you a couple of things folks always overlook, because a pantry alone isn't the whole picture. The first is cooking. A pantry full of food does you little good if you can't cook it when the power's gone. And here the old ways come together beautifully, for the same wood stove that heats the home also cooks the food, with no electricity at all. So give a thought, as you build your stores, to how you'd cook without power too, whether a wood stove or some other safe way of cooking with fire and proper ventilation. Food you can't cook is only half a meal. The second is water, and it matters more than food in the short run, because when the power fails, in many homes the water stops too, since the pumps that bring it need electricity. So a wise pantry keeps water as well, plenty of clean water set by in good containers, because a body can go a good while without food, but only a few days without water. Don't build a larder of food and forget the water at the top of it. And let me give you a sense of how to begin, because I know that bare shelves can make a full old pantry seem like a mountain too high to climb. So start small and start simple. Just begin keeping a bit more than you need right now. When you cook or shop, buy or make a little extra and put it by. Begin with the dry staples, the easiest of all. Beans and rice and flour in good sealed containers, and that alone puts you ahead of most households in the land. Then, as you're able, learn to can, starting with the simple high-acid things and working up to pressure canning as your confidence grows. Find a cool corner, a basement, a closet, even a single cupboard, and let it become your pantry, and tend it faithfully. Build it slowly, jar by jar, sack by sack, over the seasons. There's no rush and no need to strain. Every jar you add is one more meal of security on your shelf, and one day you'll look up and find you've built something solid without ever once straining for it. Let me go a little deeper on the practical side of it now, because I want you to be able to actually do this, not just admire the idea of it. Take the dry staples, since they're where most folks ought to begin. The whole art of keeping them is guarding against three enemies: moisture, bugs, and mice. Moisture is the worst because damp ruins grain and beans and invites mold. So your staples must be kept dry, in a dry place, in containers that seal against the air and the wet. Bugs will find their way into flour and grain if you let them, so good sealed containers matter, and some folks keep a bay leaf tucked in the bin, an old trick against the pests. And mice? Well, mice will chew through a paper sack in a night, so anything in a bag wants to go into a hard container they can't gnaw. Get those three things right: dry, sealed, and safe from mice, kept somewhere cool and dark, and your beans and grains and flour will keep for years, faithful as anything. It's not complicated. It's just the knowing of it, and now you know it. And let me tell you about labeling, because it's the humble little habit that makes the whole system actually work. Every jar you put up, you mark with what it is and the date you made it. Every bin of staples, you note when it was filled. It sounds like a small, fussy thing, but it's the whole difference between a pantry that works and a jumbled hoard that doesn't. With everything dated, you always know at a glance what to eat first. You always use the oldest before the newest, and nothing ever gets lost, forgotten, in the back of a shelf to spoil. A pencil and a moment when you store something saves you a great deal of waste and confusion down the road. The old folks kept their stores in good order, knew exactly what they had and how old it was, and that plain orderliness is a big part of what made their pantries so dependable. A pantry is a tended thing, walked and known and kept in order, not a pile shoved in a corner. And folks always want to know how much to aim for, so let me set you at ease about that too. Don't let the big numbers frighten you off before you've even begun. Start with the simple goal of a few weeks of food on hand, enough that a storm or a short, hard spell is no trouble at all. That alone puts you far, far ahead of most. Then, as you're able, build toward a few months, the way our families have always kept, a whole season's eating on the shelves. And the truly prepared, the way my people live, keep close to a year, because we put up a whole harvest at a time. But you don't begin there, and you mustn't think you have to. You begin with a week, then reach for a month, and build from there, season by season, never in a panic, just steady and faithful. And one day you'll walk past your shelves and realize with a quiet pride that you've built something real without ever having strained for it. I wish I could show you my grandmother's pantry the way it lives in my memory. It was a kind of quiet wonder, floor to ceiling with glass jars catching the light, every color of the whole garden put up in neat rows, the deep red of the tomatoes, the green of the beans, the gold of the peaches and the corn. Down in the cool cellar, bins of potatoes and onions, crocks of kraut and pickles giving off their tang, hams hanging cured in the dark, sacks of flour and beans and grain standing in their corner. It was the most reassuring room in the whole house, and it was, in truth, the family's security made visible. A whole year's work and a whole year's eating gathered into one place you could stand in and see with your own eyes. No storm ever frightened my grandmother. No empty store ever gave her a moment's worry. She could have fed her family for the better part of a year from those shelves without buying a single thing, and she never once spoke of it as preparing for disaster. To her it was simply how a household was run, how you fed your family, how life was meant to be lived. That's what I want for you. Not fear, never fear, but that deep, calm fullness, the quiet knowing that come what may, your family will eat. Now I want to step back and tell you what this really is, underneath all the jars and sacks, because it's about far more than food. It is about a kind of freedom and a kind of peace that most folks in the modern world have never known. The family with a full pantry is a family that is not afraid. They don't lie awake worrying over what might happen to the supply chains or the stores or the grid, because they know that whatever befalls the world outside their walls, in here, on these shelves, there is food, and their family will eat. That security is one of the greatest gifts a person can give the people they love, and it's within reach of anyone willing to learn the old ways and build it up patiently over time. It isn't about fear at all. It's the very opposite of fear. It's standing on your own ground, fed by your own stores, beholden to no one. And there's a rhythm to it, too, that I want you to understand. Because the old pantry wasn't filled all at once. It was filled with the seasons, each thing in its time. In the spring and early summer come the first greens and the strawberries and the peas, and you put up what you can't eat fresh. High summer brings the flood, the beans and the tomatoes and the corn and the cucumbers all coming on at once, and that's the great season of canning, the kitchen hot and steaming with the work of it, jar after jar going up on the shelves. The fall brings the apples and the pumpkins and the root vegetables and the butchering, the potatoes and carrots going down to the cellar, the meat being cured and canned. And so the pantry fills itself across the whole turning year, each season adding its own gifts, until by the time winter closes in, the shelves are full and the family is provided for. There's a deep satisfaction in living by that rhythm, in working with the seasons rather than against them, in gathering each thing at its moment of plenty and laying it by for the lean time to come. It ties you to the turning of the year in a way that the modern life, where every food is available every day from the store, has entirely lost. And it means the work is spread out, a little at a time, season by season, never all at once, so it never overwhelms. There is one more thing I'd have you understand about why all this faded, so you know exactly what you're taking back. It wasn't that any of it stopped working. A jar of beans keeps just as well today as it did 100 years ago. What happened is that the store got close, and the power got dependable, and everything got easy. And one generation at a time, folks simply stopped putting food by. Why spend a hot summer day canning tomatoes when you can buy a can of them any day of the year? Why keep a cellar when the store is 5 minutes off? And so, choice by convenient choice, the pantry shrank to a few snacks in a cupboard, and the knowledge of canning and curing and cellaring near about vanished from the earth. We traded our own deep security for the ease of the moment, and never quite noticed how little we'd kept to fall back on, until some storm or hard time came along to remind us. But what was set down can be picked back up, and of all the old skills, a pantry may be the most satisfying one to reclaim, because you can watch it grow, shelf by shelf and jar by jar, a real and visible security that you build with your own two hands. There was a time when nearly every home in this land had a pantry like this, when keeping a deep larder was just a plain and ordinary part of running a household, as unremarkable as anything. It's only in this last little sliver of time that we handed it all over to the store and the refrigerator and the always flowing power, and forgot how to feed ourselves from our own shelves. But that knowledge isn't lost. It's right here, waiting to be taken back up. And there is no better hour to begin than now, while the lights are still on and the shelves are still full, to quietly build the kind of pantry that means you'll be just fine on the day they're not. So begin your pantry. Start small and build it faithfully, season upon season. Fill your shelves with the good keeping food of the old ways, and eat from them and refill them, and take a deep, quiet comfort in their fullness. And know that you've given your family something precious and rare, something most of the modern world has lost entirely. A home that can stand on its own 2 feet. A table that will not go empty. The deep, calm security of a full pantry, no matter what the world outside may do. If this is the kind of practical old wisdom you've been hungry for, the kind that got quietly set aside and forgotten, then stay here with me. There's so much more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time. Subscribe, and we'll keep remembering the old ways together, because some of the most important things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget, and they are waiting, patient as a full jar on a shelf, for us to remember them again.